Hi everyone, and you are welcome to Abstract Classes and Abstract Methods lecture. In this lecture, we will discuss the following use case. Assume that you want to develop a search engine, and you want this search engine to support searching inside the text, images, videos, or you want to support searching in all of these data types. It's clear that if I have a class for each one of these search methods, each one should have a method with the name search in order to do the search functionality. So the question now, how to implement an interface in a way enforcing all the new classes to redefine the interface methods. In other words, if you decide in the future to add a new search method, it's clear that it should have the method search. So how to enforce this class to define this method? This is what we will answer in this lecture, so let's get started. In this lecture, we will learn about what polymorphism is, then we will talk about abstract methods and abstract classes. Next, we will see how we can implement these abstract classes in Python, and at the end, I'll end up this lecture by a quick summary. So, what's polymorphism? Simply, at the beginning, let me tell you that polymorphism is just a combination of two words, which are poly and morphism, which mean in English many forms. So what I mean by this? In OOP, polymorphism means that you are able to implement a single method in multiple ways. And why we are doing that? Because I need the method to have different behaviors in different scenarios. Like the use case that I start talking about at the beginning. So I have search class, and each one of these search class have a different search method which will look for the data inside different source of information, whether it's text, image, or video. Now let's talk about abstract methods. So what's an abstract method? Simply, it's just a method that has a declaration, but it doesn't have implementation. In other words, it's a method with no one line of code. And now if you ask me why I need such a method, I'll tell you simply to define an abstract class. So what's an abstract class? Let's move to the next slide to answer this question. So, what's an abstract class is? Simply, if the class has at least one abstract method, we call it an abstract class. And if you ask me why usually use abstract classes, I'll tell you that in Python or in any other programming language, there is the concept of interface. And I mean by interface here, it's like a template for a class. So when I say that one class inherits this interface, I mean that that class will re-implement all the abstract methods that are available in that interface. And this is quite useful because we can understand that the interface it's like a contract between multiple classes, in a way guaranteeing that all of these classes have an implementation of the abstract methods. And this will let me replace one object from one class by an object from another class inheriting the same interface without worrying about having exception because of this replacement. Also, what I need you to know that abstract classes can't be instantiated. And this makes sense, to be honest, because if this class doesn't have implementation for some methods, so if you define an object from this class, how to call this method? What will happen if you call that method? For this reason, abstract classes can't be instantiated. The last point that I want you to keep in your mind that the abstract class forces all the subclasses to provide implementation for the abstract methods. Otherwise, if you try to define an object from a class that inherits an abstract class without redefining the abstract methods, you will get error. Now let's see how we can define abstract classes in Python. First of all, you have to import from the library ABC both ABC meta and abstract method decorator. Next, you will define your abstract class, and the first thing that you have to do is passing the following parameter to this class, which is meta class equal to ABC meta. Next, you will start listing all the methods and the attributes that you want, and the method that you want to make it an abstract method, you have to annotate it with the following decorator, @abstract method. After that, you start to define the children classes, like here for example child class, and we will do normal inheritance, like here, parenthesis abstract class example. Next, you will define implementation for the abstract method, and you will see here that in the child class, there is no abstract method decorator. Also, what you will note that in abstract method in the abstract class, I set pass under the method, which means there is no implementation, nothing to do here. Whereas in the children class, I just print a statement like print ABC method example in order to show you that you have to provide implementation for this abstract method. Now let's move to Jupyter Notebook in order to see a real example using Python programming language. Okay, now let's see how we can develop a simple search engine in Python programming language. First of all, regardless where I want to search, whether in text, images, or videos, at the end I need a method like search. For this reason, the first thing that you have to do is to define an interface. And in order to do that, you have to import the following. So I will say from ABC, import ABC meta and abstract method. And let's define this class, which is search interface. And here you have to say that the meta class for this class is ABC meta. And then you have to define the abstract method, which is search in this case. By writing the following code, actually, you have defined a class represent an interface in Python. Alright, now let's try to define an object from this abstract class. Let's say search equal to search interface and run. You will see directly I'll get the following error. Can't instantiate abstract class search interface with abstract method search. So as I mentioned before, you can't define an object from the interface because this interface has some methods without implementation. So if you define an object and you try to call this method, the interpreter doesn't know what to do in this case. For this reason, you can't define an object from the abstract class. Okay. Now let's inherit this interface by one of the search method that I want to support. Like for example, let's say I have a class, it's named class text search, and let's inherit this interface by put this search interface inside parentheses, and let's say just pass, don't add anything, and try to define an object now from this text search class. You will see that if I do something like this, I'll get also an error. Why I got this error? Because right now my text search class inherits this interface, but it doesn't re-implement the abstract methods that are available inside the abstract class. So in order to be able to use this text search class, you have to define how you want to search inside text inside your data. So in order to do that, all what I have to do is just define search self, and I have to pass search query. And now for the simplicity, just I'll say looking for my search query here inside the text data. Now if I run, you will see now that there is no error anymore because this method has been defined. All right. Now, let's apply this inheritance relationship along with implementing the abstract methods over multiple classes. And here's the point. Usually when we define interface, we don't do that only to define just a class. We define this interface to be a template for multiple classes that we expect they should have the same behavior. Like for example, text search, video search, image search, etc. So if I take this class here and put it here as the first class in my search engine, the second class is instead of text search, let's say it's image search. And here I'll say inside the images data. And let's redefine it here, text search, and let's make it as video search. And here inside the videos data. Look here, my friend. Right now, all of these classes inherits the same interface. So all of them, you will see that they should re-implement the abstract method. Now, look how we can now satisfy the concept of polymorphism. Let me define an object of search. Okay. And here, let me consider this search is text search object. And let's say search, let me call it sh. And this search.search, which is the method that I have. And let's say I want to look for, let's say sofa. All right. And let's print a dummy line and delete all of this. And let's run. So you will see that when I run this, the search engine will look for sofa inside the text data that I have. Now, if I change only the class here, let's say instead of text search, I say image search and run. You will see that it's the same method name, but it's a different behavior because right now I'm looking for sofa inside the images data. And if I replace this by video search, I will look for this sofa inside the videos data. So by using the concept of abstract classes and abstract method, actually you are doing two things. Number one, you are able to define a class template in this case. And when I say a class template, which means all of the classes that are from these templates should have some sort of similar, let's say, attributes or methods, number one. Number two, you are able to satisfy the concept of polymorphism because you are able to define one method like search, but with different behaviors according to the class that you are defining your object from. And that's all. Now let's recap what we have learned in this lecture. In the beginning, we start talking about polymorphism, and we see it's a way to implement a single method in multiple ways in order to have multiple behaviors in different scenarios. Next, we've talked about abstract method, and we see that abstract method is a method that has a declaration, but it doesn't have implementation, which means it's a method with no one line of code. After that, we've talked about abstract classes, and we see that this class is an abstract class if it has at least one abstract method, and usually abstract classes are used in order to define interfaces in object-oriented programming. In the end, we've seen how we can implement an abstract class, and we see that in order to do that, we have to pass the parameter meta class equal to abc meta, and above the abstract method, I have to use the decorator at abstract method, and you have to note here that the abstract method has no implementation. Now please, I need you to refer to the challenges available in the lecture resources in order to practice what you have learned so far. Thank you so much for your time, and if you are available, join me in the next lecture.